Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X-Pod on Season 4, Episode 2. I'm one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is the
The man
Dr.
who belongs
Jones.
in a museum.
Yeah, the distant relative of Henry Jones Jr.
I couldn't get the hat to sit on my headset. So I'm sitting here as if I'm a Team Fortress 2 character.
How you doing, Paul?
I am doing well. Alas, this must be retired temporarily.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm real excited because I'm a man who walked into what I thought was going to be a desert this year and found a jungle.
Right?
Because man, we're going to be once again spoiled for choice this year. It's not going to be any big sequels or anything of 2023, but I really hope that 2024 continues to impress and surprise. And it sounds like we've got all, if there's any indication, two of ours are complete surprises
Yeah,
out of left field after a recent trailer. We're going to get back into all of that. But yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm still recovering from sickness. So, at least my voice is better. Kind of like a fun fact of last week's episode. We had to record it in 2 separate days because the first day we recorded so early and I lost my voice. I was losing it and we had to cut it. And then we recorded the rest. You can clearly see if you watch that first episode when we did the change. Obviously, you could see someone completely change his outfit. I didn't. I still had the same one. But I'm still recovering for that. So if I talk too much, I can start coughing. But that won't stop us because we're definitely going to keep recording. And
Oh, yes.
we're doing another special episode. This week, kind of like as tradition dictates, where first episode is our Game of the Year episode where we crown our favorite. And now we look forward to the rest of the year. Obviously, we're recording this the same day as the Xbox Developer Direct, which thanks to it, some of our choices kind of were shifted around. So that was fortuitous timing. Sorry. Then a game that could have been most anticipated had we recorded much earlier, it was already out, which came out this Monday for us. Technically comes out tomorrow if you didn't, comes out today if you didn't buy the deluxe edition, Prince of Persia. But yeah, it's when we were planning and reading the list of what was coming in, things being confirmed, things still to be confirmed. Even though 2023 felt like the scene that you kind of mentioned, is there's so much, and there's so much to be excited about, and I can't wait to be able to talk about that. Unlike other times how we have been doing it, where we both had our honorable mentions and then our individual 10 most anticipated games and go one-on-one, we decided let's consolidate it all into one. We had the conversation beforehand, and we're gonna just talk it all consolidated as it is. So before we dive into that, this is just a reminder that this is the X-Bottom Podcast, or gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing, available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So, obviously, Paul, there have been, sometimes you cannot accommodate everything from a single year into just one list, and 2024 is looking like that. We had to separate two lists ourselves, one which are our 10 most anticipated games for the both of us, and a list of what we just called maybe. So kind of it's this could be good, this could be bad. We're interested in playing, but it's not something that's super anticipated for us. So we're gonna start with the maybes, Paul, and just kind of in random order. The first one that I listed there for maybe is the Silent Hill 2 remake. So these are not in order. This is just kind of we just put them in the list, and we're gonna.
And these are also blended, so you're gonna get some that I added, some that he added, and so on.
Exactly.
And so forth.
So in this one is I'm just so mighty curious to see what a Silent Hill 2 remake that is exclusive to the PS5 actually looks like, especially on the eves of us getting so many excellent remakes in the horror genre, especially just last year with Dead Space and Resident Evil. This is being done by Bluebird Team, the team that made The Medium, I think that's what it was called. I forget.
Yeah. So the one that was on Xbox.
Yeah, and then moved to PlayStation later that year. So that was kind of a fixed camera, being able to move through two planes of existence and all that. Silent Hill 2 is considered one of the most horrifying games ever made. So I wonder if that translates. because this Blue Red team, it could go either way. That's why it's a maybe. Now, the next one.
Yeah, so this was replaced. I forgot to add the D back on here, but yeah, this was the Ukrainian studio that was working on this. It was a pixel art noir, like thriller-looking, side-scrolling kind of game. I know less about it than what it just looks great because pixel art mixed with the right level of volumetric lighting, you just activate something in the back part of my brain.
Mhm.
And this was just a really solid looking creation slash project before it got indefinitely delayed. However, we did hear that it's supposed to be set for this year. So really excited about that,
Cross
and
and
I hope to
fingers.
see more from them. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
The next one for me as well was Dungeons of Hinterberg. I've been
Mhm.
following the development team about this ever since I think it was another Xbox showcase that showed it.
Yes. Mhm.
This is like if Little Devil Inside actually existed,
Mhm.
for lack of a better word. It's
Yeah,
like
because it's still
you're a
that game's
character,
lost.
it's gone. I don't have any hope of it ever coming back, frankly. But yeah, Dungeons of Hinterberg is the idea of like it's kind of a lighthearted storyline that would in other genres be terrifying, where it's like you're a character that goes out and hunts monsters and does contracts for things Monster Hunter style and then comes back with it. But there's a lot of like indie charm to it. There's a lot of very interesting like cell shaded bomb rush cyberpunk and goodness, what was the one that was actually based off of?
Yes, a radio?
Help me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jet Set Radio, like cell shaded
Uh-huh.
look to it. And it was just really cool to see all the stuff they've been adding and continuing on. And because I've been following them, I just every like week or so I get a new thing that they added into the game. And it's just like one of those wholesome, like, look at this cool thing we made happen in a video game. And it's like, oh, that's so charming. I want to play that. So yeah, that's why that's there for me.
Yeah. The next one for me that was there in the maybes was Stellar Blade, one of the two Sony published second party games that they announced a couple of years ago. In fact, these two were kind of like announced at the same state of play. So Stellar Blade is definitely this game from the Korean developer that's very Bayonetta like, Devil May Cry like, and I've been seeing like a few more clips about it, and it looks like so excessively intense. So like usually people say that anything made by Korea is known to be excessive in everything, and it's like they love their spectacle, they love like just going big. And me that I like character action based games, it actually does look interesting. It will be interesting how much like jiggly physics this game has, because that was one of the things that you actually noticed when I did in the first time. But even Zach noticed it and Duncan noticed it. So I wonder how lewd it could be. But
I mean, that's probably the extent of it. It's the whole bodysuit thing, and that's how a lot of that kind of crowd enjoys things. It's all about the teasing than the actual explicitness of it. So, I mean, that's probably all we're gonna get out if I had to guess.
Yeah, this one, I would be more excited for this one if we had a release date. It's supposed to be the first half of this year based on like a PlayStation blog that listed kind of like the early anticipated ones that had everything with dates except this one, but this one was kind of slotted in between two that had dates, so maybe it's soon, who knows. But yeah, that one is exciting. But also another one that's also exciting in that way is Rise of the Ronin, the game that Sony's publishing with Team Ninja, the guys that made Neo and Ninja Gaiden. This is supposed to be like an action RPG that I get mixed explanations about what this game is. People are like, yeah, this will be kind of like Neo, and I heard otherwise, that is more like action based and not like Neo. Something kind of like a more harder Ghost of Tsushima. That's kind of what I heard. This one is like in a maybe because I don't know if I have reached my peak tolerance for for punishing Souls likes in my life. And I would like for this to not be a Souls like because that's kind of what Neo was. So it's kind of like a maybe when I can see more uncut gameplay and people kind of like explain it to me better. But it looks cool. That's why it's a maybe. And then Helldivers 2, that's like one of another Sony published game that's like coming in the middle of the Hellscape release schedule Hellscape that is February. This is a sequel for the top-down indie game that came out like in 2015 that was like super fun but also super hard. Obviously, it has changed perspectives now. So this one is interesting to me, and just in the idea of like this could be like a fun co-op shooter thing to play if we're like waiting on stuff. Like there's gonna be a lot of waiting for us for like the big game of February for us, but there's like a lot of like placeholder stuff in February also to be like we could be playing this as we wait. This could be one of those. So you put Skull and Bones.
I did actually. That last trailer kind of surprised me because it seemed a lot more robust than what I originally thought of it as, which was what it was advertised as, which was like a 5v5 multiplayer, like shooter, hero shooter, whatever you want to call it. You can customize your ship and you bring it in with 5 others, blah blah blah, whatever. And this seemed a lot more like, oh, you can actually like go out and explore the world. You can like do single player things. You can, it's not just a competitive multiplayer experience, which was one of the biggest turnoffs of that. Because what you loved the most about Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was building your own ship, building your own crew, and going off and doing your own thing. And nobody wanted to turn that into a 5v5 multiplayer game. So, I mean, it's gotten my curiosity enough to take a look at it whenever it's getting closer, but we'll see.
Yeah, this one, the fact that I talk with Travis Northup from IGN like a lot. I mean, I talked to him about this game. Like he got to preview recently, and he was shocked how good it was. He said like he was expecting like a trash fire with how often they have changed what this game is supposed to be, and like its focus and things like that. That then when he got to play, he was like, "This has a shot." So that's why this is like I accept this being in a maybe. So one thing that pains me that it's in a maybe because of where we've been with this game for like the past year and change. Destiny 2 The Final Shape, which recently got delayed from its late February release all the way till June. So what is there to say about Destiny that we haven't said, Paul? It's like we have gone through the worst year in the game's existence, and that's so sad this late in the game when you're supposed to peak at this point where you're like in the crescendo. Witch Queen set us into the crescendo. Instead of continuing here, we tumbled. So it's like, are we expected to just climb up all the way where we were supposed to be when we finally reached the end of the saga? It's so weird to think that this is supposed to be the end of the saga, and I feel nothing. I feel no anticipation. I feel like I'm not frothing at the mouth of like, man, I can't wait to see how this saga ends. We're reaching the end of Destiny in such an underwhelming fashion, and that is so sad. But I still love the game. The few times that we go back to it, I usually have fun. Like, because at its core, it's a fun game. It's just so much around it has kind of like eroded our unwavering love of this game that I wonder if in this extended hiatus where we are right now, where the season's done, we're kind of like in between space because we're in the delayed part of everything. Like if they're able to do anything to be able to, how can I say this, like rekindle the excitement, maybe more trailers, maybe more quality of life stuff. They announced today that you'll finally be able to like customize your character, like the face of your character again, finally for the first time in 10 years. So I wonder if that's
freaking time.
Yeah, almost 10 years.
Did they say just the face, or can you change the gender?
No gender change, just the face. Yeah. Because you want to turn to male Titan, right?
Realize it's because I want us to be able to switch back and forth, because some armor sets you realize were made well with both gender body types in mind, and some absolutely were not, and especially for the female Titan, a lot of them are like just kind of a reskinned slope in the wrong way, and it doesn't look right, especially when you put it next to other armor pieces that did not change at all, mostly for the chest piece. Everything else looks usually fine, but it's just very frustrating when you're like, oh, this armor piece looks freaking awesome, and then you put it on your character and you're like, this is terrible, actually. Yeah.
I'm glad I put all my male characters in Warlock and Titan, because that usually works well, and I left my female as my hunter, because hunter female always, like, all armor that I looked at her always looks great.
Yeah. But I'm such a huge Samus guy, like the female armor, the bulk of it. It's got to be built right. And I found it. I mean, this is such a nitpick, really, because I've got so many armor pieces in that game.
Mhm.
But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, my hope is that they surprise us. It's like we can only go up from where we are right now. That's kind of like where we are with Destiny right now. So that's why any other year, the end of a game that I've followed for 10 years would be in my top 10. After what happened with Lightfall, not at all. Then we both put also Final Fantasy 14 Dawn Trail. So this is ironically, it's kind of like with Destiny, we're getting the end of a saga. With Final Fantasy 14, we're seeing the start of a new one. This is the first expansion since they finished, quote unquote, finished things with Endwalker 3 years ago, and they're using this to kind of like overhaul the visuals, overhaul a bunch of stuff, maybe work as a kind of like the new beginning for the game. And I bet this is here because we did dip our toes back into FF14 last year, and in that brief time, it was a blast. Obviously, there's still a lot of content we have to kind of see to be able to reach this point, but at a certain point, it looked like 2024 summer was not going to be the summer we got last year, where it was like jam-packed. So that seemed like the perfect time to be able to catch up. And I would still hope.
Right now, it seems like it's going to be okay. But honestly, if some of these games get the wrong kind of release dates, we might be in trouble.
Oh, yeah. So we'll see. You are excited for Tekken 8. It's coming up soon.
I am. It almost wasn't my most anticipated if this year wasn't going to go completely insane with its releases all of a sudden. Tekken 8 looks like a great next step for the series. I was a huge fan of 7 when it came out. My roommate at the time was a big, like, lifelong Tekken guy. He would go back and play like 2 and 3 just for the fun of it. He taught me how to play the game. He played Tekken Tag Tournament 2 all the time. He had probably 700 to 800 hours in that game easily. That was like his game to just chill out alongside Skyrim. But I would watch how that played, and after a while it just wore me down. 7 came out, so he and I played a lot together, and now with a lot of the classic characters returning, especially 2 of which that I got really good at and was able to beat him because they have counter moves, and he's really good at being like a rush down aggressive dude, so I was countering him very nicely. But it just seems like it's got a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for in the next set, and I want to definitely play that with some of them when it comes out.
Yeah, this one, because it's coming out so soon, considering everything else that's coming out around it, I'll tell you, I could help like with a sale like down the line with this year based on just when it's coming out. So especially learning my lesson of like full price fighting games that I'm not excited about, aka Street Fighter, and how good it was to wait for a sale for Mortal Kombat 1. So
that makes a lot of sense since your goal is to experience the story mode usually and just kind of play it on your own time. I've learned that if you wait too long for a fighting game, if your goal is to eventually go online, you almost need to get in early, because if you wait, you are not going to have a good experience. Even if you just play it a little bit to understand the mechanics and then you come back to it later, I found that you do a lot better than trying to start it fresh out the gate. So I don't know if I'm going to buy it myself or not, or if I'm going to wait with you to get it on a sale.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You played the demo, right?
I did, and I really enjoyed it.
I tried the story mode.
Choice of the new characters.
Yeah, I tried the story mode with the TV characters, and I was not convinced. I was like, "Oh, this reminds me a little bit of the story mode from Street Fighter 6 that I didn't like." So that was kind of like
I want to talk to you more about what you didn't like about it. I'm curious, but
maybe I wasn't in the right mind space because it was a lot of dialogue. It wasn't getting me in.
All I
remember
that, was the story mode was just the intro sequence with Jin and Kazuya.
Didn't even see all of that. They put me into like stupid like chibi stuff when I went into the demo.
Oh, that's not the story. That is not the story.
Yeah,
I'll tell you right now, the story is an insane fight between Jin and Kazuya that they're just like beating the crap out of each other, and it's like Devil May Cry. It is insane. There's like
Yeah, it's
laser
the thing
beam
I've seen. Yeah, I've seen the
fired.
trailer. Yeah, I've seen that from the
Yeah, but
trailer.
like you get to play that, and there's like a
Mm,
four-stage fight where you are Jin and you're fighting Kazuya, and things change as you're going through it. That was what the actual story was. So you played something else
yeah.
involved in that. That was the arena and like the online fighting thing. That's the lobby that you go into
Hmm.
with the chibi thing. That's I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But like the story
So
itself, Tekken has a pretty solid,
I
absolutely
I
insane
remember that
story.
from Tekken 7. I played that.
Yeah.
So
So I
that's
think you need to go check that out
yeah.
instead.
I'm gonna re-download it to see like what the hell happened that it put me there. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I
This is
don't know
so dumb
what
because
that was.
it was like training me, and it was like these chibi characters like playing the arcade version of Tekken, and that's where you play. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not feeling
That's
this. Yeah.
that's what
So,
they did to teach you the mechanics. For somebody who's like never played the
mhm.
game, it gives you like a slowed down training process. So it's great for people who've never played a game. I would not recommend it for you in the slightest.
That's why like
So
it turned me off
that's
because
why.
yeah, it turned me off. I was like, why am I here? God damn it! It's like I played Tekken before.
Nope.
Like all these games technically play the same. So yeah, I'll give it another shot. But yeah, I was like, I definitely want to play it, just not when it's supposed to come out, considering everything else that comes out around that time. That's why it's a maybe. So Pioneer, Paul, you reminded me of this one, which was kind of like the Division meets what was the other thing?
Division meets Metro.
Yeah, and I was looking at like some of the screenshots again of that. It looks so good. Like Pioneer looks so good. We don't
It
have
looks
much
solid.
we don't have much info about what it is. That's why it's like in a maybe. And like when it comes out, obviously it's gonna come out on all systems, thankfully, not just a PC only early access garbage thing. So, but this was kind of the definition of maybe. We don't have enough info for for
I
this
feel
one.
like if we had more like release date really, because it sounds like if the reality matches what they've told us it's going to be like, then I'm sold. Because it
Mhm.
sounds like it's Metro on the outside, and then there's like a DMZ division zone where it's PvP VE, where you extraction shooter your way in and out to get
Mhm.
exclusive loot. And I was like, for like a first person shooter like that, that sounds awesome.
Mhm.
um and hopefully a little bit less sweaty than like Tarkov or something like that, because I don't have it in my heart to deal
Yeah,
with it.
me
But
neither.
I do kind of wish we had more extraction shooters
Mhm.
in console,
Oh
because
yeah,
realistically all we have
we
is like
barely
Punch
have anything.
Showdown,
Yeah,
and
and
that's like
that's
it.
DMC.
Like, yeah, I mean, like if you really wanted to stretch, you got the Call of Duty DMZ mode, which is an extraction shooter, but that's like the only two real efforts on console that I've seen. It's such an
Mhm.
untapped market, and like there's a lot of them, especially the more unique ones, like that space shooter, like Marooned, or I don't remember what it was, but it was like everything had like World War II guns, but you were in a spaceship, and I was the cool as hell. I just wish there was more of that, and less of the you lose everything, including the character that you've been building up. Just like a little bit of buffer there. But yeah, that's
Pioneer.
why I'm excited in Pioneer.
Yeah.
The next one I included was Stalker 2.
Yeah.
I
Metro meets
feel
Fallout. That's basically
exactly.
how it's been described for me.
So
Yeah.
it's like, because Stalker 1 isn't really my cup of tea. It's just a little bit too on that like oppressive and depressing and not really fun, but that's the point kind of a game.
Hmm.
And it's like I respect it. I love looking at people playing it and talking about it and stuff. But I hope that it just once again, I want to know more. I saw some screenshots; they look fantastic.
Yeah.
Want to see
We
what
got
it
a
looks like
release
when it
date.
comes out.
Yeah, we got a release date now.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a Game Pass game that is coming out in September. So at the very
Big
least, we can
motivation.
try it there. So Black Myth
Next
Wukong, Paul.
thing,
Yeah,
oh,
Black Myth
we
Wukong.
skipped Space
Oh yeah, Space
Marine
Marine.
2.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'll keep this one short. Just I never played Space Marine 1, but I watched a Russian Badger video on YouTube about it, and it looked really freaking cool. So now this one's coming out. I've always had like a tangential kind of interest in the Warhammer 40K side of things, but there's like barely ever a good jumping on point to take a look at it, because I have no interest in buying hundreds of dollars of minis. So it's got to be like some of the other formats of that, and Space Marine 2 seems like the best option for it
It's very
because
Gears of War-ish, right?
yeah, it was very
Mhm.
Gears of War at the time, but I don't think it has much of an effort of uh, cover shooting as much,
Yeah, it's
even
just
though
more
like
just straight up
everything else
shooting.
was
Yeah,
Gears of War.
yeah.
And it just had a lot of variety with like its weapons, and it was just very interesting, unique for what it did. And this is just more of that, but really updated. So I'm like, sign me up because those Space Marines are freaking cool looking.
Yeah.
And that's my statement about that. So yeah, Black Myth Wukong next. For this one, I put it in because for one thing, Sun Wukong's really cool. Journey to the West is really cool. I watched a lot of the Overly Sarcastic Productions videos on the summary of Journey to the West, so my understanding of that mythology has like skyrocketed, and also my interest. So Black Myth Wukong is like a Souls-like game, but super crazy on the spectacle. Really unique on the weapon because you're using a staff exclusively, because that's Sun Wukong's whole thing, and it just looks awesome and surprisingly polished for this kind of story. So we've been seeing it for several years now. Every once in a while, they have one trailer of like a little segment of that game, and everybody goes freaking crazy about it. And then you just rinse and repeat that for the last 4 years, and here we are. But yeah, hopefully, it actually comes out, and hopefully, it's actually good.
Oh yeah, it definitely right now it has like a behind the scenes controversy based on like how they treat their female employees and things like that. That IGN unearthed. So I wonder how that like plays out for the narrative around that game. But I'm kind of tired of Souls likes. That one is like, yeah, maybe we'll see when we get there in August. So
Yeah.
I very briefly included Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth because I did try Like a Dragon, like Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is Yakuza 7, and this is basically Yakuza 8. I found myself very like weirdly charmed about how they were able to do like a turn-based RPG, and this is basically that but bigger and better. I don't want to jump immediately to this one because I want to finish the first one first. And I would hope that then when I finish it, this may be on sale or on Game Pass. Maybe that's when I get to play it, maybe later this year. So,
Yep, pretty much. It's not
yeah.
really on my list.
Yeah. Then there's Banishers Ghost of New Eden, the game from Donut, the guys that made Life is Strange and Vampire. This one was like a sort of medieval looking God of War with like some mystical beats, if I remember correctly, from like the Jeff Keighley, one of Jeff Keighley's shows when they showed it. This one is like in the middle of February also. Like again, the onslaught. So a few of these games could afford a delay, I tell you. This one is a maybe for me because I want to hear if it's good. I want to hear if it's great, if it's like worth investing in. And then finally, this one's here because there was no way I was gonna sneak it into our main list. But I put Suicide Squad Kill It just yeah. I will because like I mentioned last week, the NDA got lifted. I played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League almost 2 months ago. I had to keep mum about my experience about that game. Talk about a game that I had lost all hope, like after we saw that state of play, and then it got delayed for like a full year, and then getting my hands on it and finding myself so enamored with what I had played, how much a lot of that game reminded me of why I like Rocksteady as a developer, and how much in the middle of all the bull crap that they've added that makes it such a generic live service third-person shooter, that is the thing that people really like are latching on to kind of like clown on it. There's so much of like the trade of Rocksteady's trademark attention to detail, production value, storytelling chops that's shown in that shine bright in the 2-3 hours that they allow me to play in the demo. That I got to like play that and replay with like the different characters. That I was like, I'm oddly really looking forward to this. Like I've been like itching to play this, so much so that it put me like in a Rocksteady mood to go replay the Arkham trilogy. Where last week I platinumed Arkham Asylum. I'm gonna platinum Arkham City. Like it's put me in that mood because so much of that game reminded me of that. There was a sequence halfway through of what they let you play that was an inversion of the Arkham verse that had me smiling like had me smiling from ear to ear, because I was like, this is so clever that they were able to do like present the same scenario but from the other perspective. It's like it's so cool. And I'm so curious about the story. Like if they were gonna have the balls to live up to their subtitle, how they walk it back. I have read some leaks that I don't want to like 100% say that is true, because I've heard like conflicting reports about maybe time travel being involved or multiverse shenanigans and all that. But I tell you, like, stick on hand. I had way more fun with Suicide Squad than I was expecting, and I can't wait to play it. So, and it's only here in May because I couldn't put it in our top 10 because Paul is not excited for this one. No. He would feel differently if he played it, but I also fundamentally like this is gonna be a game where how good the game is always gonna clash with what your inner fanboy wanted out of this. That's always gonna be something that
don't care about King Shark or Captain Boomerang. I don't care who you are. I just can't like them. Harley and Deadshot, sure, but also put them with some better characters.
Yeah. So and that's kind of like again like I feel bad for Rocksteady because I feel they have made a really good game, but it's like when you know they are the peak of a developer who has developed for DC, and it's like they are the ones making a Suicide Squad game where they have Superman in their game, Batman in their game, Wonder Woman in their game, Flash in their game, Green Lantern in their game, in Metropolis, Lex Luthor's also involved. So it's kind of like the monkey spot scenario that you're seeing your favorite characters rendered in amazing detail and early on represented in such a like comic accurate way before they got possessed. But then the way you interact in that world is with characters you don't like. So that's kind of that's always gonna be kind of like a schism that I feel some people are not gonna be able to get over it. I thought I was not going to be able to get over it, and then I played through all the characters, and I'm like, you know what? I like this enough that I think I can get over it. So I hope they do like an open beta or like a demo. You need to try it, Paul. I tell you, it's like, if I had not played this, this wouldn't even be here. I was as negative as many people after we saw it at the State of Play, just like fundamentally what it was. So that's how good I feel like Rocksteady did. And ironically, it's like the way that people got to experience that game in the alpha was the ideal way to experience that kind of game, because then when WB David Zaslav, that of course he's like such an ass backwards executive, that he was like, no, let's set up a chopped up press event where we're gonna fly people in to play like this game in 10-minute chunks in separate parts where you don't get a flow into things. This is a complicated game to like get a grasp on because there's like more depth to it than it seems. A lot of those previews were negative. Lo and behold, the NDA lifted. A lot of people were like, yeah, we don't know what they were talking about. It was like, we had a blast. And we had 3 days with this thing compared to like press that only had like a few hours in one day. So I feel bad. It's like that game's gonna get I don't feel it's gonna get a first shake, but I will give it a first shake. I'm excited for that. So those were our maybes, Paul. So like y'all listen, games that we'll definitely try, others we're gonna wait on. But now we're moving to our agreed upon top 10 most anticipated games of this list. And we're gonna start with one that Paul was definitely more excited for than I was, but it's unique enough in the indie space, published by PlayStation, that I wanted to give it a shot, and that's Pacific Drive. Take it away.
Yeah, so I watched the ACG preview on this, where he got to go into a lot more detail about what he played, which was a several hours stretch of time with the game, as well as showing a lot of the gameplay there to actually give us like what realistically this game is going to be like. And it is so much that car is like your spaceship going through Elite Dangerous, essentially, where you start off and you have the really bum out station wagon, but almost every single part of that car is replaceable and upgradable in some way. And I love the dashboard because it makes me feel like it's a mix between the Ghostbusters car and like the Back to the Future DeLorean, which I just love, like all the LED extra things on top of it. And it's going to sound dumb, but I really love the dashboards of old taxis, where it's like you've got the whole machine just set up right there. It's got all these crazy numbers and readouts on it. I just love a good HUD like that, and how the whole game is diegetic, where all of the information for the game you need is in front of you at all times, as long as you're around the car. Even if you're outside of the car, the display still works, so you can still look through the window and you can see all that you need. You can upgrade, you can repair all these parts to it, and is very heavily focused on just keeping with that vehicle and going through using the like risking driving through risky areas, like very Death Stranding almost, where you're trying to get into this area, get to the next spot, get out to your base and upgrade your car, and then start the process over again. And it's just small in scale enough while also really being ambitious that I really want it to succeed as best I can. And it just looks so charming that I have to champion it, you know?
Oh yeah, it's worth championing, especially because it's like it's rare to see Sony put their might behind this kind of game recently. Like Sony has become like the most boring of the first party developers because you know what to expect from their first party. Like they have doubled down so hard on their tried and true formula that you like anything that's published by PlayStation, even go look at our maybes, like Celebrate Rise of the Realm and Helldivers 2. What do they have in common? Third person, over the shoulder, action adventure. So it's like Pacific Drive is like, what's funny is that there's former Sony devs working on this that made it like an indie studio, and Sony was able to put kind of like their might behind it, that they promote this game like in their most anticipated things to look forward to in the year, that they do like at the PlayStation blog. And the art style is so cool, the idea is so cool that it's worth being having this as an anticipated game. And this is also a game that I think it's releasing. Let me see. Check Control F.
Wasn't aware that it had a specific release
February
date,
22nd.
but
February 22nd. So it's like it's in the middle there. So it's like, yeah, it's competing with release space with Foam Stars, Helldivers 2, Banishers, Ultras, Arset, the
it's
Jewel
not competing with Phone Stars, frankly, but
and Foam Stars is free at least, so we get to try it for free.
yeah, that's
on PS Plus.
I don't know if you saw that my interest heavily cooled off on it because they're using a lot of AI art in it.
Are they really? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, it was ironically, you remember when Valve said that they were going to allow quote unquote AI art. However, you have to clarify anything that has AI at all in it has to be like mentioned. So they had to change Foam Stars to having AI art in it because some of the assets inside of like the 2D art of it is AI generated. So everyone was like, well, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah. There's a reason why they're giving it away for free. but yeah, it's in the middle there, like a week before our most anticipated game. So
yep,
we'll see. But it's interesting enough. But again, like a bunch of this game need to get delayed out of February. It's like it's nuts seeing what February is for this year. So when did February become November? Like that is now usually like the most like stacked month.
It's at least the last 2 years now. Is that it?
2022 for sure was stacked. That was the Elden Ring year. So
crazy.
Yeah. Then the next game we have in our most anticipated games of 2024, Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, Delta Snake Eater. So basically the remake for Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, done not by Kojima, but like by both a team within Konami and Virtuos, a studio that has done a bunch of like visual remakes before, like Final Fantasy X and X-2 for PS3 and PS4, and the Batman Return to Arkham duology that is by Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, where they actually like went above and beyond a remaster and actually put those games from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4. So they made like what could have been an easy, just up-res with the PC version. They put the work and did something that at times was better, other times was not, but they usually work in this space. And the thing that's exciting about Metal Gear Solid Delta is just the fact that Metal Gear Solid as a franchise is like releasing something quote unquote new again. Obviously, we got the Master Collection late last year. We're hoping Volume 2 is this year or next.
In hindsight, it made me question why 3. Like all I can think is they're either going with the most popular quote unquote one that a lot of people have the most universal praise for,
Yeah,
or they're going chronological.
they said chronological. This isn't
That's
about
what they
like
said.
just
Okay,
yeah.
good. Thank God. So hopefully that means that they're going to go through all of the series like this at some
Mhm.
point, but that sucks because that means we're going to be waiting for like 15 to 20 years for an actual Metal Gear Solid remake.
Yeah, the original that everyone
Like
wanted
the
a
one
remake
that
for.
everybody wanted. And especially now that I've finally played it.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness, that hurts even more. So the fact that these people have been waiting for already about 20 plus years, I am now joining them going, "Oh, that hurts," because I really wanted like a modern and set in modern days Metal Gear Solid remake, but here we go. At least I'll take it, I guess, because 3, I've already said before, has probably one of the most compelling storylines. And like
It
I've talked with you about it already, but
it's the cleanest of the Metal Gear Solid stories because it's like this one was the one that sidestepped the all the technical like future predictions of Metal Gear Solid 2, like how that game has become so eerily like prophetic more and more like as time goes on. But at the time when all that mumbo jumbo was said, everyone was like, this is just gibberish. Like, we need something more simple. And that's what Metal Gear Solid 3 was. The thing is, because Metal Gear Solid 2's story was so prophetic, it has aged the best out of the two. Especially because the gameplay is more simple. It's more like easier to grasp on. It's like snappier. And Metal Gear Solid 3 has a bunch of survival stuff that was conceptually cool back then. But going back to this, like, I have to go to the cure menu to select searcher the ointment and things like that. Just like it added complication for complication's sake. So that's why like that one I understand kind of like the idea of a remake if a gameplay remake of that game simplifies that but keeps the story intact, which to many is still Kojima's most heartfelt, most simple, most powerful narrative, like about like soldier sacrifice for the greater good. So that's why like
and that was one of those first examples where I was like, man, the government really just doesn't care about you, huh?
uh-huh.
And then I played Spec Ops: The Line, and then went, oh no, they definitely don't care.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, oh yeah, especially the Spec Ops: The Line puts you like in the at the heart of like the horror of that. But yeah, it's like the little gameplay that they showed of this game at an Xbox what are they called? I forget, kind of like it wasn't the developer direct, it was an inside Xbox that they posted like late last year had gameplay of this, and it's clear that they have kept everything intact, and now you can crouch walk. So basically, like yeah, that's like the Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid 5 style of stealth. So
I found out thanks to a documentary that Peace Walk, this has been forever since I played Peace Walker, but you can crouch walk, but you cannot crawl while prone.
Yeah.
That blew my mind because I was like, why would you change that? Just let them move with both of them.
Yeah, apparently it was all done because I remember that was a PSP game and they needed to kind of like compromise a lot of those controls. So.
And then somebody pointed out that your walk speed is actually just as fast standing and crouching, so there's no point to just standing and walking in the game.
Yeah, just keep crouch walking. It's going to be much easier for you.
Weird. So, anyway,
Peace Walker is weird, but for a handheld game, it was so excellent. And obviously different when it's experienced in a console, but
yes,
a lot of those ideas got fulfilled in Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. It was like taking that and now fully making it in a video game that had its ending cut off. Or a big chunk. Which like that game ends, but just one part of the story is just left. It's just left wide open. So,
having finished Metal Gear Solid 5, I felt it all over again. How painful it feels to just. There it is. That was it.
Yeah.
And just the entire weirdness.
Yeah, a masterpiece left unfinished. That's always that game's legacy. That game's so good to play. When you start playing it, you're like, yes. Then you make it past chapters 30 to 46. You're like,
yep.
Oh, no.
Why are half
No.
of these replays of an old mission? Why is this just a difficulty change?
Mm.
Uh, and I will say the requirements were not as difficult to get to episodes 45 and 46 like they were. I had almost
They
no
nerfed it.
issues getting
They
to
nerfed
it.
it. Yeah.
I had a feeling because I was like, they must have changed this because I don't remember it being that easy to get to. So I was very glad that I was able to get to the big reveal and
Which
everything.
is the
But
ending of the game. That's the end. That's kind of
right,
like the ending and roll credits. So
but man, it is frustrating.
yeah.
It is so frustrating.
Yeah, knowing that the Eli Psychomantis thing was like the one thing that they couldn't finish, and they left it in chapter 51 that you can go watch on YouTube, like in its unfinished state. So, what could have
Anyway,
been?
I'm gonna make myself sad about it. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I'm excited that it exists. Frustrated at Konami in most every other way. And a part of me just hopes it continues because at the end, I am a fan of this IP and I want it to survive, even if it puts money in the pockets of a company I hate.
Yeah, it's
And I have to admit it.
monkey's
I am
paw
not
scenario.
immune to propaganda.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Me, like, my only desire has been like for Kojima's original work to live on, and we already got one half of that with Master Collection. Whether this is good or not, depending, because it has nothing to do with Kojima, and the Master Collection didn't either. They just basically ported the games, but it's like that's his work. That's his unadulterated work, and it's still so good. Were you expecting to play a PS1 game like MGS1, Paul, on your PS5 on 2023, and for you to come out of it enjoying it like you did?
did not.
Right? There's something about it. There's something really special about this series. So I'm glad that Metal Gear in some way lives on again, and I can't wait for Master Collection Volume 2 whenever that happens. But until then, this is set to be out this year. I'll play it. I know Metal Gear Solid 3 to heart. I want to see if all the quirkiness of that game is left intact, and I want to see if the controls that they add don't break the game, because that's what happened with Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes on GameCube. That game was not designed for first person. That's them adding Metal Gear Solid 2's first person into Metal Gear 1 design broke that game. So now we added Sandland, the game that has the art for Akira Toriyama. Is it also like an anime by Toriyama or something like that? You can explain that.
It was from a manga originally that was one of his like spin-offs later on where he's like, I am exhausted from Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. I just want to make cool stuff again. And Sandland was the was the result of that, which I think is going to also get an anime now because it's Akira Toriyama. He's like the man that lays the golden eggs, and every company ever is like, I will pay you so much money to get the rights to this, and he's like, fine, whatever. So I'm sure there's going to be either a movie or a series, or it might already exist that's out there. But yeah, it was originally a manga, and obviously this is one of the whole creations out of that. However, they seem to have put a true level of effort into this to the point where they're making an entire storyline that I was like, why does this feel kind of like Metal Gear Solid by the end? Because there's just, I was fresh off the presses of like these crazy cinematics, and even if like the characters look ridiculous, they all felt like there was some kind of emotional arc going on with all of them. There was more to it, and then the gameplay itself was just like, all right, you get to build and customize like crazy levels of goofy mechanical like robots and flying vehicles and cars and tanks, and it just seemed really cool. And mixing that with Unreal Engine 5 was just an absolute killer. And it was like you took Dragon Quest and you took all of the most boring and frustrating parts out of it, and then you slapped on Banjo-Kazooie and said, all right, go get him, kid. And that was kind of what I felt by the end of that, and I was definitely sold on it.
Oh yeah. I have heard many great things of people that played this at Summer Game Fest. Like, people have played it, and
I didn't realize that.
And even people that were so anti-anime walked away really impressed by it. So me, like, having a rebirth of love for like anime based on a few games that I've seen and also tried recently, this is one where when it comes out in April, which April is kind of like vacant right now, I'm all in for that because it's different from when I compare Sandland to the games that I played last year. I'm looking for some freshness, so that's how Sandland sneaks in as a very high anticipated game for me this year.
So I did a tiny amount of research just to make sure I wasn't talking out of my butt there. It was originally a manga that ran for literally only a few months, back in 2000 actually. And then eventually now it's going to get an actual like short animated thing this year in summer-ish, going on Disney Plus and Hulu. So I was not crazy there, and it turns out they planned the game to come out just about around the same time. So marketing.
Oh yeah. So and hey, weeps are dominating now. Like
That they are.
Weeps rise
We
up.
finally went through all of that trauma. We
Yeah.
run everything, and we made everything insufferable in the process.
Oh yeah. So now we enter a stretch of games that are here thanks to the recent Xbox Developer Direct that are today. One of these games has been showed many times since 2019 now, and this was finally the time where we got to see a little bit more of the combat. We got to see a little bit more of like what their approach is for this game in comparison to the first game, and that is Hellblade 2, which now has a release date of May 21st, 2024. Finally, this is the first Xbox Series X game we ever saw. So it took them this long for this game to finally come out, and it definitely looks like more what I remember of that first game, which was a really unique third-person adventure game that uses sound and psychedelic imagery as your main like drive-through. And they talk more about like expanding the combat. That game already was kind of like a one-on-one where you're like, you have many enemies coming in, but you're always kind of focusing on one. You had like your attacks, kicks, parry, and all that. And definitely looks like it's adding that, but bigger. Visually, it's just stunning. It's like an absolutely filmic video game. And I'm glad that it's finally out. And it was recently announced that it's going to follow suit with the first game. It's going to be like a smaller adventure. So it's going to be like an 8-hour adventure. It's going to cost $50 if you don't want to play it on Game Pass. A lot of people are like adding consternation over that, and I'm like, no, that sounds great. Do you guys play the original Hellblade? Do you want?
How much was the original?
40.
And this is going to be shorter than that?
No.
Oh, I thought that's what you were saying.
No,
I was confused.
No, the same length as the original.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So basically, they're doing another super tight experience. They just like have taken all this time with the production value. You can really see it on the screen. So I'm glad that like I don't need these games to be 25 hours. Do you want to play The Last of Us Part 2 again, Paul? That was 25 hours.
Not all of it.
Like, and again, it's like at a certain point, it's like those kinds of games get exhausting. Why?
Yeah.
Do I love the original Uncharted trilogy? 8 to 10 hour games.
Short.
So it's like it's tight. Like keep it tight, tell your story and get out. It's like not everything needs to be like this monster game that then it's like, what happened when we got off War Ragnarok? How long that was? I couldn't replay it. Then my mind started thinking like, why am I not replaying it? Is it because I don't like it? No, it's because it's too long. Sometimes you don't want to like replay too long games. It's like it has to be special. So they announced that. The thing that I think I see more people being disappointed is the fact that there's not going to be a physical disc of this game, which the original game didn't release with a physical release either. That came later. So I would assume they would probably put it out later, but it's like it's clear that Microsoft just gave them more money to make the game much prettier and take their time to do it, but they didn't intentionally blow this up. And I can't wait to see like how they were able to efficiently use their time. Think about it this way: Plague Tale got more expensive. They made it longer. That didn't make that game better compared to like the first game that was tighter and cheaper. So I definitely want to see. I can't wait to play this in May. Finally, we got an Ironclad May release date, and I would recommend, Paul, like because I don't think you ever finished it. Try to go back to the first game, like try it, and like
one day.
There will be time. Yeah, there will be time. At least do it before this one. Absolutely do it before this one.
That's true. If I do play Hellblade 2, I'll make sure the first one gets played at some point.
You could easily play it maybe the week before. This comes out in May. By that point, we'll probably be done with things. So,
Okay.
so definitely give it a shot. Another game that was also in the showcase that I would dare say was the highlight of this showcase was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the game by Machine Games, executive produced by Todd Howard, that we had heard 3 years ago was being made by the Wolfenstein people. And this was kind of like what ended that showcase. And I tell you that I was very impressed with what I saw when I was watching it in my 4K TV and seeing like that everything at its best. And I was pleased to see that this was just not going to be an Uncharted clone, because I could totally see the discourse, and from people that are not here right now that we have a chat with, that if it had been a third person thing, I would have not stopped hearing the comparisons to a certain Naughty Dog series over and over and over again. And it was going to be used as ammo to constantly compare, because these studios are completely different. And I'm glad that Machine Games, who made their bones with the Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher's Bay, The Darkness 1 and 2, and Wolfenstein, The New Order, and Wolfenstein, The New Colossus, first-person adventures, first-person shooters that are all about narrative, that makes a few third-person elements here and there. This allows this game, Indiana Jones, to stand out from just being an Uncharted and a Tomb Raider pack. Think about it this way. Uncharted kind of got inspired by Tomb Raider, but it kind of like overlapped it. And then Tomb Raider tried to copy Uncharted. What did Tomb Raider suffer for? No one would ever stop comparing those games. And look where Tomb Raider is now. I bet like they saw that, and Indiana and Machine Games decided, no, we're gonna stick to our strengths. We're gonna make something unique that we're gonna try to nail visual, sound, and aesthetic to be as close as possible to what you remember the original trilogy of Indiana Jones looking, and give them their own spin. And as someone that loves Wolfenstein, that looked great, and I can't wait to play more. Would it have been cool to get a third person maybe a few years ago? Not right now. Not this many years afterwards, where it would have been just endless comparisons. And honestly, they wouldn't have been able to make Uncharted better. Let's just be honest. Might as well do something else to stand out, to make it unique. And from what I see online, very few people are disappointed with like the look, because they're like, oh, this looks unique now. This is not just going to be Uncharted. So that's why it's like it's
ironic, because I've passed like 3 people saying the opposite, because we just follow very different people, I think. Mm-hmm. But let me I do love that we're getting an Indiana Jones game. I am so excited that we get to see more of this character, this IP, because I just got off the back end of revisiting the entire movie series, mm-hmm. and going, even if some of them don't hit as hard as some of the others, I say there is not a bad movie among them, and I'll mm-hmm. stand by that.
Including the last 2.
Yeah, I will stand by those now, especially after revisiting the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's got its issues, but I would say nothing more than any of the weirdness of some of the others. Mm-hmm. And it all kind of makes sense in the end. It all comes back together. And that, I think I remember going on record as saying, even though Uncharted was great and Tomb Raider was okay, there's not really anything else that does it. Like, everything else tries to do like the cover shooting, they try to do a little bit of maybe a little bit of the adventure, but I wouldn't say that there's hardly any other games. It's not like it's an oversaturated market. It's just people won't shut up about it. That's the problem.
That's the irony, right? It's not like there's like a huge volume of these games, but they're held at such kind of like constant high esteem that makes it more exhausting.
And that's why I think it still would have benefited as a third-person game, because the reality is that even with the comparisons, there's still not that many games out there like it. And I love those games so much. I love being able to see my character on the screen, especially when it's somebody as iconic as Indiana Jones. You have so much space for animation, little movements. For a character that's that storied, literally everything they do is some kind of reference to something that happened in a previous movie or IP, whether it was a book, a comic book, another video game that happened. And there's so much you lose whenever all you have access to is the character's hands. And I know that we've seen, like, whenever he's doing something, it pulls back and shows the character doing it. I would argue that that's probably the worst way to implement that. Like, if you're going to be in first person, I almost prefer you just commit to it, rather than like pulling back and showing Indiana Jones kind of doing a little animation every once in a while. I don't know. It just didn't vibe with me for some reason. But like at the same time, if you stay in first person, fantastic. Like the goofy nonsense with him like shooting at the plane and then jumping off the plane onto the wing of the other plane. I was like, this none of this makes sense at all. I'm so here for it because it's exactly the kind of dumb stuff that Indiana Jones does. Um, so I am excited for it. I love that it's between Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade, like we've all talked about, because there's like a good couple of decades between each Indiana Jones movie, and people kind of forget that.
No,
Or at least
it's like
at least like one, because
it,
what's the Temple
there's
of Doom?
two. Temple of Doom is
really
1935, and Indiana Jones Lost Raiders of the
I
Lost
thought
Ark
it
is
was like in
1936.
early 30s.
No, it's in 1935, Temple of Doom, and then Raiders of the Lost
Okay.
Ark is
So for some reason
1936.
I thought that one was further back, but I know Last
The
Crusade
leap,
is 38, isn't it?
yeah, and then the
Yeah.
leap is to the 50s
Right.
in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull,
And then of course
and
we jump all the way to the 60s in Dial of Destiny.
Battle of
Okay.
Destiny, yeah.
My problem was I was thinking Temple of Doom was in the early 30s. That's on me.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, so it still spans a good amount of time, and there's plenty of space, is what my point was, is that there's so much opportunity to have adventures in between all of that, because you go from Temple of Doom, where he's early on, to like that Casino Royale to Quantum
Mhm.
of Solace kind of leap, where they're like,
Yeah,
I'm a
an hour.
fresh-faced agent, and then it's like, you're too old to be doing this, Bond, and he looks exactly the same.
Hmm.
You're like, how much time has passed, guys? So
Oh yeah.
anyway, yeah, I'm down for it. I'm excited for it. I still feel like there could have been a couple of changes here and there, and I'm going to be a nitpicky because Indiana Jones is probably one of
Yeah.
my top two up there. I know you said it was your top three behind Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, right? Or
Oh yes.
yeah,
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is my
um,
all-time favorite movie franchise. Star Wars my second.
mine is
Star
Star
Wars
Wars,
would
then
have
Indiana Jones, then Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Star Wars
So
would have been Star Wars would have been number one had it not been fucked over by Disney.
it stays
So,
up
yeah,
there. It
yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah,
But yeah, that's where I am, and I'm gonna kind of get off my soapbox now so we can get to the rest of these.
yeah. But another thing that I just kind of want to say about Indiana Jones,
Mhm.
what did I say when I played Immortals of Avium last year, Paul?
I
We
don't
don't
remember what
get
you
we
said.
don't get meaty first person adventure games like that are all about story and all that. That is one kind of game that has been massively underserved. And when I see like any other developer that have made Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I would have accepted a third person if that's what they're known for. Let's say Insomniac. If Insomniac was making this, I was like, okay, I'll let you. I'm glad that Machine Games, known for first person, was allowed to make the game they're known to make with this, because that way I know that they're playing to their strengths, and it's not a kind of game that we see often. Ironic enough, yes, you get a lot of first person shooters. Where do you get them? Competitive, not single player, not like meaty stuff. And that's what made it more exciting, because it's like, oh, so that's where I'm gonna get my meaty single player stuff from guys that nail storytelling. If you just go back to the two Wolfenstein games, their stories are wild and they're so cool. So it's like, I'm glad that these are the people that they're doing it this way, because yes, we haven't had an Indiana Jones like Uncharted style game in a while. We haven't had a first person shooter that is about story not even longer. So it's like, so it's funny. It's funny seeing it that way, and that's why I was more excited about what I saw about Indiana Jones, because I could have seen that Bruja so easy, and I could have seen the scenario. Sorry, I could have seen the scenario where Machine Games attempts to try a new, different kind of game for them, and would have been sloppier, and then that would have been more problematic. So I'm glad that at least they're playing to their acumen. So, and then maybe sometime somewhere in the future, then they go to third person studio, and then they can get to make that game. But at least you get this one, because then then at least I know this game now has more eyes on it, because people are just not gonna be like, it's just one of those games. Now people are like, huh, that's it. That actually looks interesting. I saw that vibe more. And the few that obviously decried, like the three you saw, is like the ratio I saw the people that I knew were not into Indiana Jones that got interested with what they saw versus the people that are like, I wish it was like higher, and I feel they made the right choice for this game. So, and I'm glad that is this year. I cannot believe that 2 Lucasfilm games will come out this year. So
what a world after all of that route.
And then, and then there's another game that sneakily showed up at the at this developer direct that we had seen before at the Game Awards that actually piqued your interest a lot, and we got to see basically extended gameplay look of this game that basically confirmed this game is what you thought it was going to be. It was Visions of Mana, and that is our 5th most anticipated game of this year. Take it away.
So y'all already heard me talk about the surprise that I got hit with whenever I saw the trailer for Visions of Mana. Mana, actually, it is pronounced that way. I always mess that up. And since then, we found at least one other game that we're going to talk about later that plays very similarly, and it made me realize that there's been this subtle underlying shift in some of that JRPG side of things, where they've gone from like pretending to be hack and slash games, but are actually holding you back in very frustrating RPG fashion. Excuse me, into actually letting you have more control over your character and gameplay, and still telling really interesting, sweeping stories and epics about like 5 to 10 teenagers teaming up to eventually kill God or something, which is always what ends up happening, and we all love it. So when I saw Visions of Mana show up, the designs were crazy, the colors were bright, and the action was popping. They had my full attention, and after going back and looking at the gameplay of this one, that is fully confirmed, because we only got a little burst of like actual gameplay in that first one with a lot of cinematics, a lot of showing what the designs looked like. In this one, we got a full voiceover showing how the movement works, how you can summon this adorable fox like shadow dog thing that can run around with you, and it's like a pangolin armadillo creature mixed with a dog, and it's like fantastic work, guys. So you can run around the world, you can do all your stuff. It's a seamless transition between regularly running around the world and combat. There's like a lot of Kingdom Hearts in it, and I am so happy that people have finally realized that Kingdom Hearts is such a wealth of gameplay knowledge. Just take that and put it into anything else, and it makes the game better automatically. So
people
I'm just
look
really
at Sora
glad.
and Donald and Goofy and wrote it off without realizing what a fantastic like video game is inside it.
I don't know why I didn't think more about it until recently, but I'm like, why wasn't that a thing? That was such a huge game series, and people are like copying cover shooters 3 decades later, but we still can't get just a really good combo, not even combos, but like just the feel of Kingdom Hearts with that like
a game where you're beating the living crap out of people like in such a satisfying way where you're tapping buttons. And the thing is that it may seem like you're just tapping one button, but so much of what's happening on screen has more depth than you
because
expect.
You're building the combo from scratch, piece by piece into your loadout almost, that if you don't think about it, it looks like you're just mashing X, but that means you put each of those in that sequence to hit just in the right way. And even when they branched out and did a lot of different stuff like Birth by Sleep with its weird triangle and switch it up with your special moves, that worked because you could still set that up like a combo and you could hit things just in the right way. There was so much control underneath the surface for it that people just never really built around that afterwards, and it kind of just shocks me, frankly, but
I think it's
I'm
because
glad it exists.
Because they saw how long it took to make those games and how they seeded into the background. That's probably why. Like think like Kingdom Hearts 1 2002, Kingdom Hearts 2 2006, Birth by Sleep 2010 on a PSP, then Dream Drop Distance 2012 on the 3DS, Kingdom Hearts 3 2019. Imagine all that gap of time. So it wasn't something that could be like often referenced to be like there's still something good about this. And I think people finally caught on that there is more to that than just Sora, Donald, and Goofy, which is all what people would say is like, I think the people that scoff at Kingdom Hearts, once they play it, they get it. You know what I mean? Kind of like
Yeah,
if they can
it
get over
very
the
much
saccharine,
is.
yeah, if they can get over the saccharine storytelling, it's like when you actually play it and you get to feel it. It's like me that I went through the first Kingdom Hearts, like briefly while I was going through the first Final Fantasy, be like, it's so interesting seeing all these items and menus. They remind me of Kingdom Hearts, and then I had my Spider-Man moment of like, and I just
Hmm.
like replayed it like on a whim. So it's
I
like,
think another little example that I wanted to add in before I forget it is like what a game that you can visually tell the difference of growth in your character from start of the game to finish, where you had your little 1, 2, 3, and that was it.
mhm.
And then by the end, you are stabbing, flying, zipping around like the true ability to bend reality to Sora's will as he started to sort of fly in his combos and things, did the ability to like throw the keyblade, all that stuff. It was just such little like tactile things because you certainly were not getting that in the story growth. But
Oh no.
anyway, we're not
Oh
talking
no.
about that. So yeah, Visions of Mana. It's just it seems like they're taking a lot of that with like the air dashes and the movements and the spell casting alongside actual fighting and stuff, and being able to use different weapons as well. Just sign me up. I'm here for it. Day one, I'm ready. I just give me that exact release date. I'm
Yeah.
there.
Turn-based RPGs, I found my love again with them last year. And even with that,
Hmm.
give me an action RPG that looks like this, sounds like this, uh,
Yep.
like touches my inner child like in beautiful ways. That that's why like I put it here almost by default as like that because this is the kind of game I like. And another game that's similar, it's only higher because it's closer. We'll get to that sooner. But before we get
Yep.
to that, Dragon's Dogma 2, Paul, the game by Capcom, that's releasing in March, the same day as Rise of the Ronin.
Oh
This is our
yeah.
number 4 most anticipated game of the year because obviously it's Capcom. Capcom is at the top of their game. This is their first true next gen game, a game just built for these machines, and it looks like that. This is a long awaited sequel for that game that released 12 years ago in 2012 and made by the Devil May Cry combat designer that implemented a few of DMC's combat sensibilities into like a more open kind of game. And you see it a lot with all that they've been showcasing, the different classes that they've been showing over the last month. IGN, I think, is currently doing a IGN first of this game where they've been showcasing like the Sphinx and other like other magical characters and all that. And
Mm.
some of the scale, the beauty of it, I'm like, this is gonna be good stuff. Dragon's Dogma 2, I tell you. It's like
Oh
it's
yeah.
it,
I just it's a game that every time I see a trailer, it makes me more excited for it because it's not in like the traditional sense of like all of these others. It's usually like some crazy spectacle, some awesome trailer that shows like the story moments. But this one's like, hey, here's a 15-second video on this other class that we're including in it. And it's like the coolest 15 seconds you've ever seen of that character going crazy, using some kind of unique weaponry. I remember like the spell swordsman or something. He was using like a dual bladed staff or something. There was like the thief skill. There was like the actual one using the great sword. You had your wizard class, and just the way Dragon's Dogma approaches everything. Where I remember playing Dark Arisen, the PS3 game, which was technically also a sequel to the first one, but it wasn't Dragon's Dogma 2. But anyway, the fact that you could have friends on your friends list and use their created characters as buddies in your party. And so it's like you didn't have any big story connections with them, but the fact that it was like, hey, that's my buddy from college, and her level 40 wizard helping out my level 1 like greatsword guy, and sure enough, she would one shot a lot of stuff for me, and there was for some reason no gap or limiting ability for that. It was fantastic. I loved walking around because all my characters looked like an actual like dark age team of like we've got our armor, we got it's all buff and scratched up and everything, and she's got like crazy bayonetta blue armor going on. It was so weird. But anyway, um I had a ton of fun with all of that and everything from Dragon's Dogma 2 with its crazy like Shadow of the Colossus style bosses, the ability to climb on things,
Mhm.
the creativity that it's approach to all of that, the way you can like defend those carts that we're going through, and you might
Mhm.
get ambushed by monsters that can actually climb the surrounding flora and fauna around you. It's just, it's nuts. And I'm definitely going to be there because I got to see how that plays out.
Oh yes, in Capcom we trust. That's I don't
Oh,
even have
yes.
to say even more because like they're at such a peak right now in their in like their development talent that I already trust that this game is gonna be excellent. It's like they just don't miss. They absolutely don't miss. Like, and even when you think they will miss with Exoprimal, they didn't
Hmm.
quite miss. They still had a moderate success. Maybe not as successful as everything else they did, but it's like when you're batting 9 out of 10 like times, it's
It's
like
like that
you
still counts.
that still counts. So it's like I can't wait to see more. But we definitely have to talk about our spot number 3, Paul. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. So
That we do.
this game showed up with a demo the day after Prince of Persia dropped a demo. We had seen this game before at
Mhm.
the PlayStation at the PlayStation whatchamacallit showcase from 2023, the one in May that everyone hated. This was one of the last games that were showed before Spider-Man. I went and looked back at it, and I remember looking at it first, being like, "This kind of looks cool." I think it has like a. I think I remember when I was watching this with Sebastian, we were talking about. It, I was like, "This feels like a mix of Dragon Age slash Devil May Cry." Like this, we're mixing. I remember asking me like, "I have a feeling this was a fighting game series because I think it was Blaze Blue, but no, it turns out that Grand Blue was also a fighting series that has had 2
Yep.
entries in fighting." So I was like, that's as far as I knew. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, this is coming out. We're putting out a demo." And I was like, "Okay, let's try it." And then we played it, and we're like, "Crap! Is the kind of
This
action
is really
RPG?"
good.
Yeah, I was like, "You were the first one to try it."
Oh yeah.
And then and you saw the characters are able to have like all this kind of moves that kind of like trigger your brain of what you want out of like an action RPG style like system.
Mhm.
It had that. Then we played through like the story sequence and all that, and then right at the end they played the trailer that they dropped in August that I completely missed the drop, but they put it
Yep.
right out there. And what a masterclass of them, like just replaying that trailer for those that may have missed it on August, right after playing a game that you probably found more enjoyment that you can think of, and then showing an immense scale of grand adventure that touched every single like childlike wonder of my being of everything that I want out of like a big video game. Like
Yep.
uh, a grand adventure with a party that goes against insurmountable odds, like world-ending threats, massive scale, the Nobumatsu music, the Final Fantasy guy that I fell in love with
I
his work last year, like combine and the game's art being done by the Final Fantasy 5,
Mhm.
6, and 9 dude. Like
I
together.
wanted to step in on that because the process of realization of the layers of realization we both
Uh,
had about this probably rivals any actually I would say it surpasses a lot of others because it not just like, oh, this is actually more fun than we thought. That was the first level of realization for us.
yeah.
It was, hey, let's download this because it looks kind of interesting and we don't really remember much about it. Like, I knew of the fighting game. I loved
Uh-huh.
how Arc System Works did it all, but that wasn't really why I was super into the series. I just remember it was kind of being an action RPG game.
Mm-hmm.
Download it, went, oh shoot, just like you said, there's
Mm-hmm.
actually combos, there's air dashes, there's parries, there's all this stuff. There's 10 different characters with completely different
Moves.
ways to fight, completely different weapons. Excuse me. You get 4 of them at a time, and you can play as any one of them at any time. All of that completely changes what the triangle button does, what the square button does. One of them has built-in counter moves instead of their
Mm-hmm.
main weapon. There's some that are like magic users. That's all crazy. You get to explore all of these sky islands. You get a ship that you can go from one to the next. We've never even seen what the third layer of that looks like in any of the previews. It's been worked worked on since 2016 when it was announced,
Yeah.
not just when they started working on it.
Hmm.
Apparently, the original game is only in Japan, so we've
Yeah.
never actually seen the true story play out for it, besides
Hmm.
maybe like even the RPG of the fighting game doesn't start off with the actual story. It just kind of catches you up and tells another side
Hmm.
story. So we've never actually seen what that does. Then from there, finding out that it has Monster Hunter style quests, that has
Hmm.
online co-op support, and then that means that you can play as any of your favorite characters that you've unlocked. Apparently, the 10 that you have in the demo is not all of the characters you have access to in the full game,
Hmm.
plus DLC characters,
Yeah.
plus the fact that, just like you were saying, the composer is the guy from Final Fantasy. One of them, I can't remember which ones. And then the art director is from
Two
like,
composers from Final Fantasy. It's
yeah,
Uematsu and another one that made 10. Final Fantasy 10. So it's
right.
like a mix of both
So
of
like
them.
that, the music side is covered and stacked, and then the art direction is the guy that did Final Fantasy 6, 5, 6, and 9, you said,
Yeah.
right?
And most recently,
So
9. Yeah.
like, which is already some of the craziest art direction in some of the series, you could argue. Because like, oh my goodness. So it's like just this level of like, hey, something seems different about this game, but why? It doesn't seem like it should be. And
Hmm.
then you just realize, you pull the layers back and it makes sense and it shouldn't. And it's one of those, like, I remember in the anime world, to sidestep slightly, when Space Dandy was coming out, people hyped it up as like, it's from the writers of Cowboy Bebop and all of these other things, and Full Metal Alchemist is over here, and it's done by the studio that did this. And it was like this crazy renaissance of all these characters, and this is that game, but nobody's talking about that side of it. Like, if it was made in like a modern, big budget thing, you know how movies, it's always like
Hmm.
from the mind of Steven Spielberg, and
Uh-huh.
it's like, that's where you start, and everyone's like, okay, I know what to sit down for.
Hmm.
This is like that, but they're not leading with it at all. It's like relying on you to find out how good everything actually is. And then we found out it comes out on the 29th of this month.
Yeah.
And what the heck? It was this like 7-layer bean dip that we were
Hmm.
finding out so much interesting things on. And I was enamored. I wasn't even playing the game. I was finding out so much about it, and then playing Prince of Persia, I went
Hmm.
back and played more of the quests for it
Yeah.
in the demo, because you can get stuff for the full game by playing the demo.
Right. Yeah. Even though it's not
Ah,
like save, it's not like there's my dog, like always. Uh, Even though it's not a, how can I say this? Usually they would tell you, oh yeah, this demo, like you can continue your progress and all that. They didn't quite do that with this, but with those awards at the very least, that helps. And this was a masterstroke of releasing the demo so close to when this game was coming out, because obviously Grand Blue Fantasy, it's not Final Fantasy, it's not like Persona, it's not like one of those like already established fantasy stuff, but it's like has been percolating since 2014, since it's gacha game that was just in Japan. It's anime that had like 2 seasons. The fighting game that came out in 2020, the updated version of that fighting game that came out in December, that I remember reading the IGN review about it. It was like, in an excellent year of fighting games, I think this is my favorite. It came out really at the end. I was like, crap. It's like this franchise just kind of like has been like percolating in the shadow, and I feel this could be like its breakout moment. And obviously, it's coming out in the tsunami of releases of JRPGs that also includes like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload, and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth later that in February. But Persona 3 Reload, if you play Persona 3, you can kind of like justify, I can play that later because I already played it, unless you're like a super fan, and obviously Yakuza is Yakuza if you want to do Yakuza. But yeah, Grand Blue became kind of like out of that early bunch that's not Final Fantasy, became my, out of these RPGs, this is the one now. It's like, I've been, Paul, it's embarrassing how often I replayed that trailer that played at the end of that demo.
I remember you said you're counting it at like 20.
I think it's triple that
That's what
now.
you listed that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
oh my gosh.
Like the
It's
music that plays in that, like just the music that plays in that trailer
mm,
is like the most hyped thing. It's like I got Final Fantasy 16 vibes of that thing. People, we crowned Final Fantasy 16 our favorite game of last year. So it's
yep.
like this game out of nowhere is like hitting me with the same vibes. It even includes a Bahamut, like, and that's part of like the
Literal.
lore. And apparently I think you can control it, so it's like an icon thing also. So it's like it's so funny. It's like this is anime Final Fantasy 16, but with an actual party system, like a more
Mm.
and like with the people that worked on older Final Fantasy games. So it's like that. Some of the most beloved entries. Umatsu, like there's a reason like why is Final Fantasy so big? Umatsu's doing the music of this thing. So it's like I can't wait. Like it's so close. Like it's like I have never like been more blue balled in my life. Like I have been like recently. Me wanted to play this, wanted to play Suicide Squad, wanted to play Rebirth at the end of like the at the end of February. It's like there's like legit excitement I'm feeling about a lot of these games. It's wild, and that's why like Grand Blue like really snuck up. Yeah, and that's the beauty of knowing that something's so close and you being surprised. Like surprises are the best. That's usually like, and this is why this is so. I didn't want to put it too high because obviously we're like riding the high of that demo, so we don't want to burn ourselves. But this could have been a
Yep.
number one easy, like just on
It
all of that.
it almost was, and it makes me think that we might be like I haven't felt this randomly excited in a childlike format in
Mm-hmm.
a while because it's not attached to anything that's like, oh, it's the big series. It's like
Uh,
this is that scrappy young buck that like still has a stacked team, and I really hope that this is like the new turning of the wheel of sorts where Final Fantasy in a lot of other ways has dropped off,
mm-hmm.
and we need another big fantasy
Competitor, yeah.
style competitor to step up, and this might be it.
No, and what's funny, Paul, because I was reading a lot of the comments in that trailer video that I saw, and a lot of people are like, "Man, this also seems like Xenoblade, like with a
Yeah.
different combat style." So it's like it can even appeal to that kind of like. I've been interested in Xenoblade. It being on Switch holds me back from me like, do I really want to commit a lot of hours into Xenoblade, like 3 Xenoblade games on the Switch, when I could play something else? But it's like I can't wait to see what I just hope that the feelings we got out of this demo deliver in the final product. It was like a masterstroke of a demo. It's so close. That's why it's high up there. Our number 3 most anticipated game of this year. Our number 2 though, because we're lifelong fans of this franchise, and this
Yep.
demo was the best demo at the summer showcases of last year, and it's still supposed to come out late this year. And this could finally deliver the dream version of this game we've been wanting. That the game from last year got close, but not quite in delivering, but it was still pretty good. That is Star Wars Outlaws by Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft. Who would have thought we would be this excited about a Ubisoft game, Paul? But how that game
Mm.
looked, and the previous game of this studio, a game that we enjoyed with Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, in an IP that we don't give a rat's ass about, and they still did a pretty good job. Now they're gonna do that with an IP that we do like, and finally delivered the open world Star Wars game we've never gotten. We've gotten close with KOTOR. Jedi Survivors
Yep.
Kobo section, the main hub area, gives signs of that. Gives kind of like an idea of like what an open world Star Wars game could be, but it's still kind of like a Metroid style, like hub based exploration. This is open world, like GTA style open world in Star Wars. Gosh, it's like if they nail it, then I know because Massive Entertainment is really good. Holy crap! This I can't imagine like this one is exciting because this is our like lighthouse game, kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel of the year, kind of like a game that could pull us through the year as we wait for it if it releases this year. That's kind of how I look at Star Wars Outlaws.
That's what I really hope for because Star Wars Outlaws was something that I was just like kind of concerned about, and what that was going to really look like. And I remember watching the first gameplay reveal of it, and I was like, it's okay. Um, and just like having so much mistrust because of Ubisoft at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as we played Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and you said that's the same development team that is going to be making this, and they've been making Outlaws for a while now, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of sat up and went, wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
And
Since
even
2021 when they
after
announced it, yeah.
And going through all of that, realizing that with Avatar, the Ubisoft model is slightly starting to break down and be reconstructed into something better
Mm-hmm.
and more modern, with exactly what's possible, uh, actually using the modern techniques and not just turning it into a fetch quest and all of the frustrating get the fog of war out of the way, and then we're going to
Mm-hmm.
make our map ridiculously huge and all that stuff. I really hope that this is where we're going with it, because I remember rewatching the trailer after all of that talk and going, "Oh, this is a lot better than I thought it was. If this is actually indicative of what I saw in
Mm-hmm.
Avatar, the crazy, I think there's like factions, there's the vehicles, there's the
Mm-hmm.
shooting itself, there's
The wanted
the criminal
system.
underworld, the
Yeah,
wanted system, the flying from your
ground to space.
the yeah from land to space with seamlessly being able to explore in space, go to all of these different planets and stuff, but not like getting too quote unquote ambitious with buzzwords with like
Mm-hmm.
there's 1,000 planets you can visit. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, there's some new, there's
Starfield.
some current ones. Yeah, we're in, yeah, exactly. But it's like, and it's got like a solid Dr. Aphra style squad of sorts, with the main chick, the
Mm-hmm.
robot with the crazy coat looking thing, her little pet character, sidekick. Um, did you ever read any of the Dr. Aphra Star Wars comics by chance? Do you know anything about the character at all?
Nope.
Short version is in the Darth Vader run of comics in 2016. He had a sidekick of sorts called Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Aphra, who worked with the Empire, was like a scrappy, silly character who tries, like, he's always trying to betray her and kill her, and she's just a little too smart each time.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, at first, it seems like he's killed her, and then she succeeds, gets away, and has her own line of comics that spans like 5 to 10 years now. But that's the whole thing with that. She's a very beloved character that's just never been seen in anything other than comic books. But anyway, this seems to channel a lot of that kind of energy from it. Oh, Black Chrysanthemum from the Boba Fett show,
Oh
the
yeah.
big black Wookiee, he's from that comic run.
Oh,
That's where that's
okay.
from originally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, but anyway, yeah, so I'm excited. It looks really fun, and I can't wait to play it.
Oh yeah. And like let's hope they said late 2024. Please stick. Please stick. I want that. We have our Jedi game. We need our Scoundrel game, and then we need our first person shooter Star Wars game that we know Respawn is working on. So
Please.
I can't wait. It's like a as as tired as Star Wars may seem for some in the game space, give them all to me. This is still an IP that I want more of. Like,
Always.
especially compared to how I feel about Marvel stuff, like give me more Star Wars. Definitely give me more Star Wars. Like, I like Survivor more than Spider-Man 2. We both liked it more based on our rankings. So
Hmm.
then, and finally, Paul, our number one, no surprise. This is apparently everyone's was anticipated game based on like who wanted the game awards. And but
Hmm.
it's easy to see why. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the game that finally gets to the meat of Final Fantasy VII like the Final Fantasy VII like story and scenario. And finally, the part where when you play the PS1 game that looks so like last gen and outdated because it was like they were trying to do so much with the little that they could do with visuals and all that. Now finally recreated in high pristine quality. Like seeing like every time I see the images, I'm like, gosh, I recently played this on the PS1. It's like it's so nuts seeing Yunnan like this. It's so nuts seeing the overworld like this. Like and seeing some of the places that they've shown, like the Golden Saucer and even other stuff that they've been teasing with some of the uh with some of the trailers that may or may not be changing stuff or being teasing stuff. Plus, all that we know that they're gonna figure out the whole sack of it all. I want to see how that works. If it's gonna be like a dual narrative where we're gonna be playing main story and then we're gonna like go to him. Like, is it an actual split narrative? Who knows? But it's like the realization, like people say, is like it's wild that Final Fantasy VII Remake was as great as it was because they made the most out of the shortest section of that game originally. It was just 5 hours. They were able to make it a full-on game. You're playing through it briefly right now. You're starting kind of like your replay of remake, and the remake project of Final Fantasy VII to me is like top tier Square Enix. I love Final Fantasy 16 a lot. I still feel 7's the better game. Like remake, like what they've done with remake, it's still like the best marriage of an action and still the turn-based strategy that defined that series. Final Fantasy 16, it's for the fans that love character action-based games, that which is not many. You can see that reflected in the sales of that game. But getting to see that like in a more expanded world and wondering where they're gonna end it, like how much they'll be able to cover, and getting to play this back to back with remake, I can't wait. Especially then when we have to wait for the third and final part. That I can't wait to see like what is exactly what's gonna cover that final part. Like Rebirth is it. Like that is the like if you're on PS5, I don't think it gets bigger for that. Like if you're in that console, it doesn't get bigger than Rebirth right now. And Sony knows that. They're like putting their mind in.
Not right now. That is all of their money and power is going into that sucker. Especially going back to what year did sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What year did remake come out?
2020.
2020. Okay.
Right at the outset of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Lockdowns have started.
Yeah, that is right, huh? But that didn't come out for PS5, did it? It was
no, the PS5 version was 2025, 2021.
That's what I thought. Okay, cool. So anyway, yeah, I remember going back. I mean, of course, obviously yesterday as a refresher, but just how smooth and how good that game looks still. And I mean, you say, oh, yeah, it's just 2020. That's not that long ago. That's also 4 years ago now. That's almost half a decade.
Can you believe
the fact that we are almost at a half a decade since the pandemic happened? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me get back on track here. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII has always been that one JRPG that people won't stop talking about even before it got all the actual like sequels and spin-offs and everything else. And sometimes you're like
it's seminal RPG. It's like it was the JRPG of 1997.
Right. Which is crazy. I think that came out the same year as Symphony of the Night, now that I'm thinking about it. Golly. Anyway, so you kind of look at all of the breadth of JRPGs, and I understand where some people are like, man, y'all need to like play more than Final Fantasy VII, and I get it, but I also understand why people hold to this, especially American audiences hold to 7 so much compared to a lot of others. There's just this perfect lightning in a bottle that 7 creates of a blend of all of these different aesthetics, the characters, the interactions, the actual movement, and everyone was like, please remake it, make it less RPG-ish, take the turn-based part of it away, and like all that stuff. Yeah, everybody talked about it. So to see that we're finally in this golden age of Final Fantasy VII, and to say that this is the golden age and not everything that's come before is crazy to imagine by itself.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see it. I'm one of those few people that was like, man, I really loved Midgar. I wish they'd spent more time there. And everyone else is like, no, I'm so glad they got rid of it. That first part was so boring. And
that's the thing. They didn't. They gave you that with Midgar with remake.
They did.
And now
that's what I mean. Like now that they made an entire game about it, I was like, this is fantastic. I'm so excited. So I'm almost like a little worried that it's like, oh, they're going to leave Midgar now. What are they going to do next? But I mean, we're obviously about to see how much they have in store for us, and they're ready. And that's the thing. They're set with this.
Oh, I beat in that game. You go back to Midgar. Like, you don't leave it behind. You go back. You circle back to Midgar. You just have this grand adventure that's so varied and so like full of life outside, that now will look more alive because the technology will back up the vision of this world that before your imagination had to fill up a lot. And that was acceptable back in 1997 because Final Fantasy VII was the game that made the PlayStation. The thing launched in 1995 slowly in the US. Final Fantasy VII on 97 was like the first big game for the system that solidify like why we still play on PlayStation to this day, because it's like it grew the console. It's like that was the introduction of JRPGs to so many American audiences. Like JRPGs were so derogatory. Like, it was like everyone will like not want to play them because they thought about it as this super complicated genre that's like so long, it's so like stat driven and all that. But then like compared to like a game that never looked like Final Fantasy did at the time, with all its CG cutscenes, like what passes CG cutscenes back then, it's pre-rendered backgrounds and things like that. Like that's why there's such love for 7, because it's like it was a lot of people's first. Obviously, it wasn't for me. I learned of Final Fantasy through 7, but going back to it now, like I finished the original for the first time last year, and I got why it's so beloved. Like there's so many sequences I can't wait to see them recreated. Like getting to see how you get to Vince Valentine, the introduction of Sid.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear the modern version of the Sid theme. Sid's theme is so patriotically amazing. Like I can't wait to see how they handled Cloud's mental deterioration as you keep pursuing Sephiroth. I want to see how they handle when you face Sephiroth. Is it the Sephiroth or is it Adam Children Sephiroth? As it was kind of teased when you play Remake. What is fate now? Like, how are they gonna like intersperse the whole thing that they're defying fate and things may or may not change? People may die, may or may not die. It's like they know what the story is, and the cool thing is that it's not like you can just go watch a playthrough of the original one and know the story and be like, I know what's coming. It's like I love the anticipation I have for this because I don't know where the story will go. I don't know how like because you can like correct me if I'm wrong. It's like rebuild of Evangelion was similar for a while until it wasn't, right? Like
yes,
and you only would know that if you know the original.
Was like a almost 1-to-1 shot recreation, and then it takes a hard left turn. And just like you said, it's like you need to play the original to know where the changes are, because otherwise you just think that's how it always was.
Yeah, and that's why like that's exciting for me, because it's like even as someone that has played the original one, it's like this still feels like a proto sequel, a proto redo sequel of that, and there's no way for you to spoil yourself because you don't know what nonsense they're gonna cook up for that, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's out in a month and a half, Paul. We're this close. Can you believe it? Like how long we waited for the first part of Remake, and how quickly we got into part 2. Oh man, it's like it's
I'm
different
very glad
times.
That it didn't take. I mean, to get to part 2, I mean, it's still 4 years, but still, I mean, like compared to the now where everything's 5 to 6 years, I'm just glad that we're about to get it, that we're continuing the story, and it's going to break me, and I don't know if I'm prepared for it, because it's potentially going to be the Across the Spider-Verse to the Into the Spider-Verse, where it's like first one was a perfect storyline, second one's going to end probably in a really rough cliffhanger that I don't want to experience, but I know it's coming.
Yeah, we'll see where they leave it. But I think the way for this has been much easier because when in 2021 we got the PS5 version, it made it feel new again. Integrate, added another stuff, so cutting out a lot of that time. Late 2022, we got Crisis Core again, re-justifying your love for an old PSP game, and now people can see why people adore that game so much now, and how important it is to see that so you can understand why the changes are a big deal. And FF16 was in 2023 to hold us over. Now we're here. It's like we've been fed, so the wait has been like much easier. It's not like us getting FF15 and then getting nothing for a while until we got Remake. That's why like the wait has been so much more pleasing. I'm glad that Square Enix, at least from this Final Fantasy side, have figured it out. Because to me, it's wild. I cannot believe we're here. I cannot believe we're here. We're this close to FF7 Rebirth. And the fact that we have amazing games to play before it. Chef's kiss. 2024 is going to be a great year.
Can't wait.
And with that, Paul, that's our most anticipated games of the year. And now we're restarting the 2024 releases. And I put them there in our document. And this is for and this is for the week of the 21st to the 27th. Just real quick, obviously this week, because we didn't read them last week, like the big ones are Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown and The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster that comes out today and tomorrow. So today for Prince of Persia, if you didn't play the They didn't pay for the deluxe edition and Last of Us tomorrow. Wait until tomorrow so you can just pay $10 and play that thing. So this is for the week of the 21st to the 27th. Take it away, Paul.
All right, we have Graven on PC, January 23rd. Howl, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S on January 23rd. Immortality, a lot of one-word cryptic words here. On PlayStation 5, January 23rd. Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney Trilogy, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on January 25th. Hidden Through Time 2, Myths and Magic, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Switch on January 25th. Hitman Blood Money Reprisal on the Switch on January 25th. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on January 26th. And Tekken 8, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on January 26th.
There you have it. That's like the initial onslaught of games. The week after, bigger week for me. I tell you. I looked at. I can't wait to read that when next time. Like I don't know if you're gonna be here next week, but for the next time, the week of January 29th to February 2nd, it's a big one. It's
I can't wait.
Yeah, can't wait. It's like I can't wait. I'm so happy that we got kickstarted for the games early, much earlier this year than last year. That's wild.
Oh yeah,
we had to wait until March. Yeah, we're in the middle of it already. It's so crazy, so excited. But with that concludes season 4, episode 2. Paul, where can people find you?
As always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter. I've been mostly posting memes and dreams and silly things, but eventually I'm going to get back to the art. How about you?
They can find me at _Segovia on Twitter /X. They can find me on Instagram /threads at Alejandro Segovia 93. And they can find my written content at both thecriticalcorner.com and seasongaming.com. I was going to write the Game of the Year stuff that we did as a podcast as an article, but because I was still sick, I didn't have the energy for it. Maybe I will, maybe I will not on Critical Corner, maybe for posthumously, but you can look for my The Last of Us Part 2 review, remaster review sometime soon. From what I've gathered, is going to be a very easy review to write. So that's coming out soon. Right. And can't wait for the rest of, can't wait to finally stop coughing. It sucks. And to just be able to tackle the rest of this year. So, Paul, thank you for being here. We want to thank you everyone for listening to our most anticipated games of this year. This was a fun one. A little more consolidated. And I think that worked out pretty well. And we'll see, like, when I see you next, maybe next week is going to be where Sebastian is in, or maybe you will say, like, again, like, just if you can, you can. Kind of like we mentioned. Yeah. Mr. Daddy, future daddy. So
that's me.
And with that, and again, if you like this episode, share it, subscribe, leave us a review, leave us, or maybe just a star review, however you want to do it. Like, we'd love to hear your feedback. And we'll definitely see you next week, same time channel, and
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.